Is for. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At the beginning of each meeting, we like to go over our district's mission and vision. Our mission is to create a culture of academic excellence through inclusive and innovative learning opportunities for the whole child. And our vision is to empower all learners to reach their full potential in a globally competitive world. The next thing that we have on our agenda this evening is going to be our best thing on the agenda this evening, which is a presentation from Mapledale Elementary students.
We'll have.
Everyone, thank you for coming tonight. I am so proud to introduce our third graders who have been practicing for their grade level performance, which will be next week. And the theme is song for and from around the world. So thank you to Mrs. Saddleberry, our music teacher, for putting in all this work. Third graders, are you ready? Take a deep breath. You got this. Here we go.
Let's go on the journey with Sally. It's so much to see.
You will hear them perform it first in their heads, second all together, and then third in a canon. So let's make sure we know where that is. Got it? Ready? Okay. 1, 2, ready, think. Stop.
Stop the train, it takes us up the
This song is about the dangerous art of making mochi, in which one person pounds the mochi and another person mixes the mochi by hand. So first we'll begin like this. Second, we will show all of the motions that we make when making mochi, and then we'll partner up. Are we ready? Okay. Okay, me the first one, this one. Okay, 1, 2, voices strong. Two more songs for you. So this one is a French-Canadian piece of music about a windmill. And I'm going to give you all your first notes. Remember, you're going to start like this. Okay. These movements are courtesy of Henry Green. Will you wave, Henry? There he is. Woo, Henry. All right, ready? Jump on the moon. ready, sing. And we wish that there was time for us to explore more countries and places on our planet. And in recognizing that, we're just going to sing a beautiful song about our planet itself called This Pretty Planet. You ready? I'm going to sing you notes and then we're singing it all together. Okay? So this pretty planet. 1, 2, ready, sing.
This pretty planet, sitting
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us.
Mrs. Settlesbury, do you mind if we ask, like, how long have they been working on these songs? Because that sounded pretty professional
Well, thank you.
for that. Like, how long have they been working on this? And, just tell us a little bit about what you've been working on.
So we were thinking about the long game here. We started with a song we actually did not perform yet. We started the year in Africa. Do you want to hear that one? Come to our performance on March 13th. Really fun. And then the other songs we've just been building along the way. So we really have been working on these songs throughout our year so far. You agree, third grade?
Yeah.
Guys, you did a great job. It sounds like it's going to be an amazing show. So look forward to seeing it. Thank you for being here. Like, as you disperse, I want you to go stand by your parent and make them stand up with you because we want to recognize your parents for bringing you tonight. You go do that for me?
Thanks so much.
Give them a hug too. Tell them thank you.
Everyone, we're gonna go ahead and continue. Please. Just wait a minute.
Like another 30 seconds. You're good.
The entire third grade.
Not the entire third.
Oh, it's select kids.
It was offered to all third grade. It was offered to every third grader to come. Those were the ones that were able to make it.
Didn't know. That was wonderful. Thank you, Maple Dale. Can I please get a motion in a second for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. James, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Please get a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your second. Changes, anybody edits? No. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballant,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Staying.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next section is public participation. And before we begin public participation this evening, I'm going to read a couple of statements for the community. The Sycamore Community Schools Board of Education recognizes the concerns raised by the recent situation involving a teacher's remarks and behavior at a board meeting. We understand the importance of addressing these matters with transparency and accountability. While the district conducted a thorough investigation and took disciplinary action, we acknowledge that the impact of words can be significant, especially in a diverse learning community. We want to reaffirm our commitment to fostering a school environment where every student and staff member is treated with dignity and feels respected, valued, and supported. To that end, our district prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or any other legally protected classification. We deeply appreciate the trust that our community has placed in us. We will continue to work together to ensure a high-quality education and supportive learning environment for all Sycamore students. Before we begin public participation this evening, I'm going to read another statement about public participation. You know, we have at least 5 people signed up today. Good evening. Before we welcome our first speaker this evening, I would like to take a moment to review the guidelines for public participation. Public participation is an important part of our meetings, and we value the input of our community. To ensure an efficient and effective meeting, we have allocated a maximum of 30 minutes for public comment. Individuals addressing the board must be stakeholders of the district, meaning they must reside in the district or have a connection to it as defined in our policy. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name, your address, and any relevant group affiliation before beginning. If multiple individuals wish to speak, no one may speak a second time until all who desire to do so have had an opportunity. All comments should be directed to me as the presiding officer. Individual board members will not be addressed directly. Board members are not expected to respond directly to public comments during this portion of the meeting. We ask that all speakers maintain a decorum and remain respectful. Personal attacks, profanity, or disruptive behavior will not be permitted. The board reserves the right to interrupt or end comments that are repetitive, obscene, threatening, or personally directed at individuals. The presiding officer reserves the right to enforce decorum and, if necessary, take appropriate action to maintain order. Additionally, please note that the board does not hear compliments or complaints about Sycamore School District employees during public comment. We welcome feedback through email, our website, and with direct conversations. We appreciate your cooperation in following these guidelines and your commitment to a constructive dialogue. Public comment is a valuable part of our process, and while we may not respond immediately, please know that we are listening and we take your input seriously. Thank you, and we will begin public comment now. Mrs. Logan will be, she will say the person's name for the first speaker and just go through the list, and Mr. Harris will take time, so everyone will have 3 minutes.
Okay, so the first person who has signed in is Mr. Brad Comerford.
Thank you, Brad Comerford, 8460 Calumet Way. I read the article in the Sunday Enquirer about a Sycamore staff member and SEA president, Mrs. Grace, and I have to say I was dismayed, disheartened, and disgusted on many levels. How many of you would still have your job if you walked into your place of work drunk, exposed yourself, bullied a female coworker via a text message, and made a racially charged comment? Would anybody in this room expect to stay employed doing just one, let alone all 4 of these things? I have always been proud of Sycamore. Sycamore has always stood for anti-bullying. Sycamore has a zero tolerance policy for racist remarks. Sycamore boards of education have always put the safety of their students first. So what's different in this case? How has Mrs. Grace retained her job?
Mr. Comerford, I know you know very well that you're not to make comments directed at employees. You're a board member, you understand that.
This is going to be directed at you, Mrs. Bitter.
Okay, you can direct that at me, but I'm gonna have to tell you to stop.
The simple truth is it takes,
You need to stop. This is not
the
appropriate.
truth needs to come out, Mrs. Bitter, and please let me have my 3 minutes. I very much appreciate that.
I read the guidelines. You have to follow our board policy. You were a board member. You
Can I please?
policy. No.
The simple truth is that the truth needs to be heard, Mrs. Bitter. This is about you and this board and board mismanagement.
Excuse me, Mr. Comerford. This
Would
is,
you like to suppress the truth?
excuse me, this is inappropriate.
I'm not being confrontational. I have a statement to make.
Why don't you put that in an email or call me on?
I will be honest with you, Mrs. Bitter. My wife sent you an email on Sunday and you ghosted her for 2 days. That's why I'm here to,
I made a response that I would need to speak with her over the phone because it was politically motivated.
once we showed up tonight.
It
It's
was-
not politically motivated. I'm concerned about our high school principal, Mr. Porter, and our communications director being targeted for bullying and racist remarks. That's an important topic.
You used to be a board member.
I absolutely,
Violation of that. You go ahead. By all means. You want to give your campaign speech right here on the.
This is not-
Our Board of Education.
this is not a campaign speech. The simple truth, it takes 3 board members to agree to termination. I clearly have no idea what happened behind closed doors, but what I saw was the outcome. 15 days and expunging from the record. What I read in the Enquirer makes me pause. In Ohio, a school board member must recuse themselves from a decision if they have a conflict of interest, which generally means one of 3 things: a personal financial interest in a matter before the board, a close family member directly involved in the decision, or a situation, and this is what's relevant here, where their impartiality could be reasonably questioned. Are our school board members impartial in regards to Mrs. Grace? Mrs. Grace is the name leader of the Citizens for Sycamore PAC, which supported a majority of the current school board members. She actively campaigned for a couple of school board members wearing campaign t-shirts. There are pictures online of Mrs. Grace arm in arm with you, Mrs. Bitter, during your campaign. At least one school board member here received $1,000 personally from Mrs. Grace for their campaign. To be clear, Mrs. Grace has every right to form a PAC,
30 seconds.
and endorse the candidates that believes to best serve the district. My concern is whether or not this board has given her preferential treatment. To me, this is clearly a situation where the impartiality of the board can be reasonably questioned. To be frank, the optics are not good. The last question is this: did the board members who curried favor from Mrs. Grace recuse themselves during executive session decision regarding her employment? I certainly hope so.
That's your 30 seconds, Mr. Comerford.
Finally, I wanted to share in conversations with the Ohio Ethics Commission that I have had, not only were they concerned, but they provide guidance for a formal complaint. They also, in this case, encouraged me to contact the NAACP. You can count on me to shed light on this until the truth is revealed. Sycamore is better than this.
The next person I have signed up is Emmanuel Black. And Mr. Harris is timing.
My name is Emmanuel Black. I stay at 9411 Stonecrest Court. This was brought to my attention in regards to the teacher this morning, and it's very concerning. Me and my wife, we came to this district 9 years ago. We specifically chose this district because we came, it was like a student forum. It has different students, different diversity. It was a very diverse population. And when I say we looked at every school, because I'm also a former teacher. I'm also a former school board, so I'm very versed in education. And so when I decided to say, hey, what would be the best fit for my children? We scouted multiple schools and we settled on Sycamore because when you was able to look across the sea of like those third graders that were just here, you couldn't tell who or where they were from. And that's what sold us on that district. So for me to see a teacher from this district display a character flaw is highly concerning. And it's very alarming because I didn't know who she was. So I hopped on Facebook and I looked at the Facebook, and behind the silhouette of her picture, she has Martin Luther King. And we all know who Martin Luther King is. And he gave a good speech where he talked about being judged on the content of his character, not the color of his skin. And I think that resounds very loud given this situation. And I will hope that the board will reconsider and look at the content of the character of this teacher. Because also as a teacher, as somebody on the board member, as a parent, I would be calling everything that she's done did in the school district into question. How have you graded your students that were the most difficult ones? How have you graded the ones that didn't look like you or didn't come from the school or come from the places that you came from? And I think those are things that you have to look at when you're considering the totality of what done took place. And so that's all the time I have. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, I have Courtney Black.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Black. Also reside at 9411 Stonecrest Court. I also have very, very big concerns about the issues that have been going on, like the two gentlemen before me addressed. But I also want to shift a little bit because I wasn't aware of this prior to the article coming out. But it's kind of intertwined with the issue that I have that has been going on at the Green School. And I feel like that may have been downplayed, possibly due to this situation because of the magnitude of this situation. And I feel like it was not addressed, where there have been fifth grade students, Caucasian fifth grade students who have been circulating videos very casually, calmly, and frankly, comfortably saying the N-word, and it's just been getting around, and we addressed this, and several other African-American parents went up to the school to speak with the administration about this, and the concerns that has, just because for one, it's just inappropriate for so many reasons, but also it's inappropriate because if you feel comfortable just using it so casually, that means your parents are using it casually and you didn't just pick it up in the bus station. So that's concerning as well. And I never want my little Black children feeling uncomfortable because somebody casually is throwing racial slurs at them. And there have been multiple videos circulating throughout the 5th grade, 2 years above these children who just sang a song from Japan and Africa and so on and so forth. So we were met with all the right things that you say to the parents, where the administration pulled my daughter out of class. And from what my daughter told me, I gathered that the concern was more for the little girl in the video and how many people had seen the video, and if she was gonna get any retaliation from the video, more so than how that maybe affected my child. And then so far, we are nearly a month removed, and all that we've seen about that was in a s'mores. Parents, please just watch your children's phone
30 seconds.
for any slang language. A racial slur is not language. It's inappropriate, it's disrespectful, and it has no place in a school. So I feel like this particular situation has muted the real issue in this district, which racism is blatant and it's running rampant. So I really implore the board to look deeper and to really put some emphasis on why this is happening and do something about it. Thanks.
Next, I have Ronnie Hill.
My name is Ronnie Hill. I live at 7935 Village Drive. And I've been on currently on the basketball board for youth basketball. I've done the boosters board. I've done several things, coached all 3 big sports in Sycamore. My son graduated last year, Elijah Hill. I have Isaiah, he's an 8th grader, and I have Ethan, that's a 5th grader. And so without getting into details, my biggest thing to the board would to be, we just said the Pledge of Allegiance with liberty and justice for all, correct? And so one of the biggest things that I've taught my kids is that, you know, the biggest lies the devil wants to tell you is that he doesn't exist, right? And so what the biggest lie that in America that happens is that racism doesn't exist. It's in 2025 and everybody tries to act like this thing doesn't exist. We know it does. It's been happening for hundreds of years. So my issue is that the way this works, and some people may not like this. Malcolm X said that they took off their white hoods and they started putting on doctors' jackets. They started being lawyers and attorneys and judges. They started being teachers and educators. And so my issue is that somebody said something that was clearly out of line. Like the gentleman said here, if that was any other profession, I work in IT, if I would have said that anyway, I would be gone. If I said it about the LG, you know, T, whatever, I found those letters, whatever it is. Like those letters, if I said about them, I'm gone. If I say about a woman, I'm gone. But for somebody to put that in there about a Black man, specifically a Black man I've met, my son looked up to as a senior last year. And my son was on the Sycamore Advisory Committee. And so my thing is that the biggest lie I ever told is that this stuff is not happening. And these people that believe in this stuff are everywhere. And here's the thing, is that you reinstate somebody like that, and this is what happens. That person can now target a kid that doesn't look like them, they don't like. And how does that work? Oh, you're talking too much. Instead of another kid talking, now this, oh, I'm gonna send you to the office. I'm gonna give you somebody else a curve on the grade. I won't give you one though. So what happens is that little things lead to the big landslides. And so what I ask is that to reconsider this entire thing, because if you have somebody that's okay to say that, especially if they had a drink, that's liquid courage. It's gonna come out how they feel. And so what I'm saying is that if that's out there, then now I have to tell my Black kids that, hey, even though that you might be getting treated unjustly, you gotta shut up because the deck is stacked against you. And that's what this is saying right here. I've been in this district for 14 years now. My son went from kindergarten all the way out, and now he's in college.
Seconds.
Okay, thank you. My other son has been here. But the way this is looking, if this is gonna be what we continue to do, now I'll take him somewhere else because at least I know it's stacked against us if they go somewhere else. But here we thought we were included and we thought we were protected. But if my kids aren't included and protected, then we'll go somewhere else because this is a conversation in the group text. I got an article and this is circulating already. So if you think that putting this person back into their role is a smart idea, it's not. And what's going to happen is that every little Black kid that has his teacher is going to request to be taken out of that class. You're going to have a whole different situation. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jenny Barker.
Hi, Jenny Barker, 7425 Gateway Drive. Last Tuesday, the class of 2026 was geared up to take the state-sponsored ACT. Many students have spent hours preparing for this test. Many families have spent money on tutors for this test. These tutors are not cheap, with families spending anywhere from $500 upwards to $2,000 for standardized test prep. I was concerned when I heard that they were administering the ACT test online. They had given a practice test online earlier that year, and my kids talked about the technical issues getting it started with just the practice test. AP tests have recently gone digital, and with my background knowledge, I know that it's a headache with each and every test, especially when testing larger, more populous tests due to bandwidth issues and frankly, sometimes College Board issues. Unfortunately, with AP, there is no choice. They only do online. But with ACT, there was a choice. Schools could choose between paper and pencil or the computer. Last Tuesday, our students showed up to the school ready to test. Instead, they sat around for anywhere from an hour and a half to over 2 hours because of IT issues. In emails with administration, I was never actually given a definitive answer as to what went wrong, just that several other schools had similar issues that were unforeseen. The biggest issue was instead of scrapping the ACT that day and doing it another day, which was optimal for the students testing, the administration instead chose to start the test somewhere around 120 minutes after the test was supposed to start. So now the kids have been sitting around doing nothing for 120 minutes, literally doing nothing. Let's think about that. In professional football, it's a big strategy to call a timeout when the opposing team is rolling down the field. Why would the team do that? Because it's messing with their mojo, it's messing with their focus, it's messing with their timing. So that's just a timeout, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is for football. We're talking about 120 minutes that the kids were sitting. And mind you, the test for ACT is 3.5 hours. So some of these kids were sitting for over half of what the test length is. I asked the administration why in the world would they decide to proceed after such a long delay. Their response was, and this is quoted, most students did not plan on returning to classes after the test, so did not have school items to be sent back to class if we had canceled the test on that day. Also, with so many different types of academic programs, we felt strongly that we would push back that their day would have significant issues. First off, they had their Chromebooks and their calculators. They could have gone to class. After all said and done, the parents are only getting from administration that they're going to adjust in the future. No apologies, just deflection. The class of 2026 deserves a proper administration of the ACT. I'm asking the district and the board to give them that. I'm asking for either the district to pay for a district for the class of 2026, which is an option with ACT, to pay for another ACT test for them during the week, or another idea, not as optimal. If they get the score and they're like, that was not the score I was studying for, planning for, because of this, they could maybe turn in a receipt to the district and get a credit on their school fees for the cost of that test, that they could take the receipt for a future Saturday test, sorry. So if they got a score and they were hoping for, let's say, a 29 and they got like a 25 and they were like, all my practice tests were saying I was going to get a 29, this totally screwed with me. That they could take a test on the Saturday in the future and turn it into the district, the receipt, and get a credit to their school fees. That's what I'm asking for. And as a side note, I've been an ACT test site coordinator for 19 years. I know how this test should be run. That was not how that test should have been run.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This is better. I know we don't typically comment, but I just want to make a point that I had reached out to Mrs. Barker to schedule a meeting. We are working with ACT to mitigate the issues that they caused, and we'll be finalizing some things with ACT, and we'll be getting back with not only Mrs. Barker, but the rest of the parents that experienced that issue. I think ACT realizes it was their issue, not ours. It was not a Sycamore bandwidth issue. It was a ACT issue. And so it doesn't help our families and our kids feel any better about what happened. But certainly we're working with ACT to rectify the problem, and we'll communicate that out when we have a final answer.
I had one other person email me, Kimberly Reese Menza. I apologize.
Good evening, Kimberly Reese Mensa, 8916 Cherry Street. Y'all know me. Y'all know why I'm here, right? Let me just say this. I want to make it a point that the high school has very little staff, faculty, lunchroom people, maintenance that look like me. My daughter has no teachers of color. Now, I'm not talking about just Black teachers. I'm talking about Asian. And we have had this conversation before over years. I have talked and preached. And for those who don't know me, I've been in the district for 26 years. I've had children go through the district. I have one left. Like this gentleman said, I was flabbergasted what I read. Transparency is extremely important in this district. Why did I have to read about it in the paper? That's my first issue. My other issue is that no one is perfect. Regardless to what Mr. Porter's, the way he carries things, how he makes decisions, that is has no merit to him being called out. He is a man now. Yeah, we know he's a Black man. So here's the deal. We know this teacher was wrong. She was wrong. It was inappropriate. And the fact that my children are hearing about it, my daughter, it's going around the school, the kids are confused. There's a problem with that. I have a major, major problem with that. And I'm just gonna say this, each of you that's on this board, I voted for all of you. I've been there for you, well, most of you, not all of you. I've been there, I've tried to support you. I am confused. I'm a little concerned and confused. Mr. Lewis made a decision, right? That he felt was the decision to make. But because she decided to sue, then it kind of flipped, right? So now I'm confused again. If it were me and I came in here and I called somebody out by their race, I would probably be banned from these board meetings. I would not be allowed in the school district building. I know this for a fact. And just like this other gentleman said, if he was at another profession, why is this woman in school? She has admitted what she has done. Not only was she inebriated, but she did some other things going to the bathroom. We all know this, right? After reading the article, I made some phone calls. I wanted to make sure this is true, because sometimes propaganda can be propaganda. We know it's all true. I'm concerned about my children, 30 seconds, and I may take a little bit because everybody else did. My daughter is here. My daughter I have begged you all to make our district more diverse. I have preached this for the 20 some odd years I've been here. And it's like it's gone on deaf ears. And now we have a situation where our children this should not happen. We are not, this is not Sycamore. We do better than this. We know better than doing this. I'm gonna say this, she needs to go. And if you are a teacher in this building, if you're a teacher listening online, I suggest you find another leader, because she does not represent our school district. She doesn't represent me as a parent. She truly doesn't represent the teachers, and she doesn't represent my child. This is inappropriate. It is ridiculous, and something needs to happen.
That's the last one I had from anybody.
Thank you, everyone. Your public participation. Do not comment on personnel matters. So the statement that we gave at the beginning is the statement that the only statement we're going to give at this time. Thank you very much for your input. We appreciate it. Can I please get a motion in a second for the actually, we don't need a motion in a second. MTS update, please.
Yes. Thank you. As you all know, MTSS is a part of our strategic plan, and we thought it was important to make sure you had an update about the work we've been doing in this area. I also think we're guilty of throwing a lot of acronyms around in the field of education. So I thought let's take a step back and actually talk about, for those online and here this evening, about what MTSS stands for. So MTSS stands for multi-tiered systems of support, which is a fancy way of saying it's how we organize all of the adults in service of student learning. Thanks for driving, Christian. I usually don't like to read to people, but I think this is a really nice way to cast vision on our first big initiative toward deepening the work on MTSS. And this is around teaming models and specifically the building leadership team. So every building currently has a building leadership team, but we've recognized that there's a need for us to provide more alignment across all 7 buildings. So the building leadership team exists to nurture a high trust, deeply curious, and highly collaborative environment where teams of educators can thrive in their efforts to learn together. The BLT support teams in their efforts to implement learner-driven, evidence-informed instructional practices. This focus creates a sense that the adults are learning and growing together in service of meaningful learning. I shared that statement, drafted that statement with some of the department chairs and subject leaders who were kind enough to come alongside me to continue to refine and revise their supplemental job descriptions. And it was really encouraging just to see how excited we all were when we read something like that, because that's our heart and our mission here and the work that we're really striving to do in honor of our students here. So just to share a couple of core values, or 3 to be exact, when we are looking for BLT members, and I'll tell you about who's on the BLT in a second, we're looking for people who want to be a lead learner, meaning you're willing to go first and try things and take risks and make a mistake and learn and try again. We want people to be learner-driven and evidence-informed. Essentially, when we're looking at data, we want to make sure that we are looking carefully at multiple data points. And then we're also using the incredible feedback that we get from teachers regarding what they're seeing in classroom and together trying to formulate what's next as far as student needs go. And then finally, we're deeply committed to being very collaborative. So who's on the BLT? Essentially, it's different right now across buildings, but we are looking to ensure that the work can happen very efficiently in each building, and that we can provide learning across all building leadership teams as well. So as far as the teachers go, we're working to ensure that it's comprised of department chairs or subject leaders, as we call them, in grades K through 6. It also includes, of course, the principal, possibly an assistant principal and/or a counselor or school psych. The BLT often will meet weekly, but we are just asking that our BLTs meet in a minimum of 2 to 4 times a month, and that we continue to focus very heavily on student learning. Sometimes there's nuts and bolts things related to the operations of the school that are important, but we're working to really hone in on our core business of school, which is really at the heart center of all of our teachers, and that's student learning itself. So I just wanted to share a few BLT responsibilities. Every building currently has a AVES plan that principals are practicing with that's directly connected to all the components of our strategic plan. Starting next year, this will become the focus of the BLT. They'll actually identify building goals together, which many of them are already doing, but it will follow the same acronyms as our strategic plan. Following AVES, so academic achievement, vibrant community partnerships, excellence in operations, and then student-centered culture, with the main focus mostly being academic excellence and student-centered culture for this team. They're going to review data together proactively and provide team response. So just to help you think about, when you think about a system, we talked about MTSS being systems. It's the commitment of the district leadership team to make sure that we organize and provide data to the BLT at key moments throughout the year. And then provide them with any support needed to review that data with some data protocols that we'd like to practice with, and just continue with our commitment to implementation science. We also are committed to collaborative structures, so continuing to encourage staff to work very closely together, because we all believe so deeply that some of the best learning happens side by side each other in the classrooms and in the schoolhouse. And then finally, to continue to lead and model learning. So planning professional development for the building and with feedback, much feedback from staff in that building. And then also continuing to be a risk taker and try new practices and to model being that lead learner for others. So our next steps, I talked about the data piece. We have done a lot of great work thanks to teammates who were here long before my time related to data. But now it is time for us to to organize further the data that buildings have access to. As you all know, the pace of a building is quite fast. And so it is our job to smooth the way and make sure that we're moving barriers to people having access to data that they can interpret very easily and then determine next steps. So as far as flow, the last thing I'll say is, think about the district leadership team being comprised of administrators, district administrators, that we meet and we organize some data for key moments throughout the year. That data makes its way specific to the building. And then the building team works to provide the data that a teacher-based team might need to make informed decisions. An effort to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support the hard work that our excellent teachers are doing on a daily basis in the classroom. And so I know that was a little bit of a high level. Wanted to make sure that you got to hear about our tremendous commitment to MTSS and the continued work. And I wanted to just give a shout out to every hardworking teacher, professional, district office administrator, building administrator. People are working really hard in service of student learning, and we're going to continue to organize those efforts. Questions for me related to that?
No, I think it's fantastic and really like the use of data to make decisions at the individual student level.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lawson deserves a lot of credit for leading this area along with, others in her department. The teaching and learning team has done an amazing job just getting this into alignment and really bringing everyone in the district around this structure. Am I on a timer?
No, sorry, that was the 30 minutes on, so that was.
But it's great to see everyone coming together and buying into the new structure and saying that this is exactly what we've needed, and everyone's excited about it. So kudos to them and their work that they've done on this area.
And I would like to tell you that I've had some people, some teachers, some educators just complimenting you and the amazing work that you're doing. So thank you for being so collaborative and meeting with people. Yeah, this is very important.
Supporting teachers in this district has really been one of the greatest honors of my life. There's some excellent teachers here, and I take very seriously our commitment to working together to build the future. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Next item is the discussion of policy first read. So it is not something we're going to be voting on, or is it? Because it says discussion.
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about the policies and why they're on here for the discussion for the first read. So there's two. The first one is IKF, that's graduation requirements. This was something that was passed to committee, not because of any significant changes, but we had to match in regards to what we actually offered. So if you were to click into it, you would see that there's specifically social studies on how we actually or what we require of our students. So that's here just for a first read. Again, nothing major there. ACAA, which is our sexual harassment Title IX policy. We currently in the district have one coordinator, and that is Ms. Lawson. And what we are desiring, and we vetted with legal, is to have two coordinators. It gives us the ability to have obviously two trained individuals that can better meet the needs, meaning if something comes up, we can get to that much quicker than if there's one coordinator. And sometimes it's just doing intakes, understanding the situation better and things like that. And so it would be our desire for that policy specifically that it could be approved by the board tonight, but I think that would need a special motion if we're to do that. So
motion to waive the second reading and to approve the ACAA.
I'll make a motion to waive the second reading and approve it.
Second.
Okay.
Mrs. Logan.
Can you call the roll to approve?
To waive.
Or do I have to waive first?
No, it would be to
Approve
to waive the second read and to approve policy ACAA. Mr. Ballant,
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye.
Okay,
thank you.
welcome. All right. Can I please get a motion and a second for the approval of the 26-27 school calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your second. Do you feel like we need to say anything more, or are you?
Sure, yeah, I just wanted to thank those who responded to the email that went out from the district with regard to family feedback on the calendar. I did provide an overview of that feedback to the board. And yeah, we're just really appreciative of the careful look that everyone has given this calendar to ensure that we have provided the best possible calendar that we can, understanding that calendars are a challenging topic as there are sometimes a variety of opinions and preferences.
Mrs. Lawson, there's been discussion at the state level about adding hours to the requirement, and I know Sycamore is always very far above those. Would this the school calendar for 26-27 cover those additional hours if that was passed in the legislation?
It would.
Thank you.
Ms. Lawson, can you just share with us the method by which you communicated to the public to get feedback?
Yeah, so there was an email sent from the district out of putting out that request for feedback, and then the emails were received in return, and then we collected all of those emails and took a careful look at any themes or patterns that had emerged.
There are a lot of
roughly 10 responses. Yeah, roughly 10.
And I would love to say that we could meet everyone's personal needs for what they would like to see in a calendar, but it's just, you know, the amount of feedback that we get, it's tough. And we're always looking at what's best for instruction, what's best for our testing schedules. You know, those kind of things that drive our calendar. I think people would like us to start later and end later, but again, with our testing schedule, with the way the quarters fall, it's best for us, and I think our teachers would agree, it's best for us to end before winter break, which causes that stress for people on the summer. That, you know, who doesn't like summer longer, but there's only so much we can do with trying to fit in the necessary instructional days. But we appreciate the good feedback that we did receive from people, and keep doing that every year. We want, because if you guys recall, some of our community members caught errors in previous years where you look at these calendars so much and so long, there's only so much you can do. But this year we were clean, so we made it through.
And I think it's also something to point out is that teachers are working 185 days, so having students come all year round is not an option either. I think sometimes people need to understand that teachers are not working the entire year. And also that the teachers do need training days in order to prepare to teach the children when they do arrive. So I know that that's come up as questions as well. Thank you. Mrs. Logan, can you please call the roll?
Dr. Steger?
Aye.
Mr. Ballant?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Dr. James?
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter?
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for the authorization to advertise for bids bus purchase?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your second.
It's that time of year again. It's time of the year to buy buses. We have a bus replacement schedule that Mr. Miller in Transportation works hard to update. As you know, we have a large fleet. We have nearly 60 buses on our fleet. And so making sure that we are proactive in response to the age of the buses, the fleet that we have out there, and to make sure our costs are spread over time. Each year we bring to you the request, and this year it's 2 buses. And that cost is estimated at $131,000 per bus. I just always think it's important to bring up as we head into the financial retreat in April and we start talking about capital PI. I came to the district 4 years ago. We were buying buses for about $93,000. They're 131. So our fleet replacement was 4 buses a year for a while, for a good while. And we're down to 2 based on the escalating costs that we see, inflation, all the things. So
What's that again? When it was
about 4 years ago. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
really fast.
And so, you know, we're thankful that the district is allocating funds. So we're thankful for that. But we also know that we need to continue to look long-term in regards to the impact of that cost and what that has on our fleet long-term. So, yeah, that's what we're requesting for the bids, and then we'll be back once we have those bids in.
Thank you. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballant?
Aye.
Dr. Steger?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Can I please get a motion and a second for the OPSI MOU, intermittent use of sick leave bank days?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your second.
This is just a MOU that we worked out with OPSI in regards to a unique situation for one of their members. Because it did not match what the language in the contract stated, we wanted to make sure we just captured it in an MOU so it wasn't practice moving forward.
Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Dr. Steger. Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Could I please get a motion and a second for the agreement VSWC Architect Scene Shop 100% drawings?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second.
This is the next step in just being able to be confident in prices for the scene shop. I know there's been discussions, and so as we prepare for the April 12th board meeting again, the financial retreat, we want to make sure that we are moving this process forward. Not that I think that we're going to have numbers back by that point, but we're going to be able to commit to be able to do that work and maybe have some insight as we get closer to that time. This is 100% drawings. The $60,000 we're allocating out of our FY25 capital improvement fund.
Thank you.
Mrs. Logan?
Please call the roll.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for the approval of an agreement with Solient Health LLC?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for approval of field trips?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for the personnel consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. James, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second to accept donation?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for approval of summer school tuition rates?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second.
Do we know, just for the community, when summer school registration will open?
It's a great question. Summer school registration will probably open in the next month.
It'll be after spring break.
It may be after spring break, yeah, likely. But we will provide communication in advance of that, so people have an idea of the dates. That will be coming sooner than later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
And Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Next item is other board business. Does anyone have any, we're just gonna keep putting them on there. Any updates?
No, from a financial standpoint, Mr. Harris and I just are continuing to work with our treasurer and assistant treasurer to prepare for the financial retreat.
Thank you. Okay, next item is to appoint, can I get a motion and a second to appoint voting delegate and alternate for OSBA 2025 Capital Conference? And I think that those two people are gonna have to be Dr. James and Mr. Harris, because you're the only two that we know for sure will be
Absolutely, for sure, board members.
at that time.
I mean, actually, we'll all still be board members.
Yeah, that's
And
true, but
Any of us could still be it. I think it does make most sense.
Yeah.
But any of us could be this.
Right, but if we're not, then we won't attend. We'll have the new board.
Mr. Harris looks very excited about that.
So the two of you can decide among.
You can be delegate.
It's a lot like just.
Nose first.
Okay, so
Delegate.
do we want to, can I get, are you okay to be the delegate or do you wanna, or Dr. James?
I am honored and privileged to be the delegate. Thank you, Dr. James, for bestowing this title upon me.
You're welcome.
And you're the, okay, very good. So how do I do that, Mrs. Logan? Just
Say,
I get a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Harris as the voting delegate and Dr. James as the alternate for the OSBA 2025 Capital Conference.
yes.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. Seeger, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballant,
Aye.
Dr. Seeger,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for the BAC bylaw approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballant,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for the BAC joint statement approval?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is a potential special board meeting. Mr. Lewis, can you please remind me?
Sure. And so because of, I think some upcoming events and holidays, we do not have a second board meeting in March. To be respectful of all of our community that have some days coming up that we really try not to put our board meetings on days where some members of our community are celebrating their, cultural heritage or cultural events. So we may need a special board meeting just for some approvals in the interim, because our next meeting won't be until April. So we don't have any dates planned. We don't have any things called out, but I just wanted to put it on the board's radar, and it would be one of those meetings where we just need you to come in. There might be a few HR items to get approved. I think this was centered around the baseball, softball project, approvals being able to move forward because the bids are going to come in. And if we don't have approval, we can't do anything until we receive your approval. So we would miss valuable weeks breaking ground and getting it moving. And I think we all know that that was a desire of everyone. I'm still on Mr. Zimmerly. We're having a conversation like, I have to get sometimes back into those old business ops conversations of like, tell me why they won't commit to having this done by the end of August, because that's a long time. So we're just trying to get everything done, trying to get everything situated. So we just wanted to put it on your radar that we may ask for an approvals meeting. And obviously we'll throw it on your schedule as time allows. If you want to do it early in the morning, we'll accommodate. If you want to do it late at night, we can accommodate whatever it is, just to get some approvals moving forward. So,
Yeah, just reach out to me and let me know and I
Yeah.
can coordinate it
thank you.
for the board. With the board.
Do you mind if I jump in on your other, because somehow the other got deleted under superintendent? I think somebody stole it and put their field trip approvals on there. Mrs. Lawson.
So sorry.
I don't know if it was you, but I'm blaming you at this point.
I received that.
So just a couple of things that I wanted to mention, and I deeply apologize to one of our wonderful high school students, Manasa Yarlagata. She is an overture finalist as well. And not only is she an overture finalist, she got a perfect score in dancing. So terrible oversight on my part. I'm only as good as the information I'm sent, but I got to double check my information. So I'm sorry to Manasa, but hey, congratulations. And how awesome is a perfect score in what you're doing.
So she will compete on March 15th.
Still competing, yes. Mhm. We did a Ask Us Anything Elementary edition last week. It's pretty well attended. Our kudos to our elementary principals, Mrs. Jimenez, Mrs. Ralston, Dr. Debelak, Mrs. Zellner, and Mrs. Aldrich from the preschool also joined us. And they answered questions rapid fire for over an hour about everything that goes on in the elementary school. Some really good questions. Not a shock that there were a lot of new young parents, and kindergarten was a hot topic for them, but overall it was really well done. And I think they were all nervous, but by the end they were pros.
Yeah, I had the
They handled it well.
opportunity to listen in, and I would just echo your comments. I thought the whole entire administration and the building administrators did a phenomenal job.
And we'll keep looking for opportunities. I think the next one I'm toying with is, we do have a secondary one coming up, but Mrs. Lawson and I were talking about the fact that it gets boring to hear adults talk. So it might be time for the Ask Us Anything student edition. So we'll see what comes out of their thoughts for our community. And I know our community would love to hear from them. So speaking of our students, Fashion for the Cure, a new high amount, $97,000 raised for the Dragonfly Foundation. So I said to the group, I can guarantee I know what the next goal is. 100,000, I'm sure. So, and just in tandem with that, we've talked about this in the past, but April 12th, there's a new event, a Cars and Coffee event. All donations are going to Fashion for the Cure and the Dragonfly Foundation. So Parker is helping them get an early start on their next donation. So
What date was
kudos.
that again?
April 12th. We have a board retreat for the financial retreat. So we're all going to have to zip out of there because it goes till 1 if we're going to end at 12. Where's it? It's at the high school by the stadium, the whole parking lot. Some of our wonderful musically talented students it always amazes me when we get these reports. The OMEA solo and ensemble, huge success. 87 high school string musicians performed either a solo, ensemble, or both at Anderson High School February 1st. This is 76% of our high school string community. That's amazing. They had an outstanding showing. All performers either received a superior or excellent rating. Orchestra students advanced to the OMEA All-State Orchestra. We have Anna Christos, Yi Wu, Paul Koo, and Mateo Maley. So kudos to those students for advancing in the All-State Orchestra. And then our symphony orchestra received a superior rating in Columbus at the Columbus Orchestra String Invitational. So good news on the music front. And then I did ask, and I know coming up, we had a state champion in swimming. So she is going to come and we are going to recognize her, I think, the May board meeting, the first one. And during that board meeting, I'm going to steal a little bit of his thunder, but he's going to give you the full overview. Our athletic director, Mr. Ovington, is going to come and give you a full athletics yearly report. I know you like to hear kind of where are we at as an organization fully, but again, our girls and boys teams went to state in swimming, and a diver. So our girls team finished 7th at the state, their best finish since 2015. That's awesome. Addie Robillard was state champion in 200 IM and 100 breaststroke. Chloe Fox finished 6th in the 500 free and 11th in the 200 free. Our boys 200 meter relay finished 13th. Matt Yee, Chase Mazinski, Parker Schnelly, and Colin Preisler. Girls 200 meter relay, or 200 medley relay, finished 9th overall, and that was Vivian New, Eleanor Hardy, Abby Robillard, and Chloe Fox. Girls 400 free relay finished 9th, Sarah Finn, Eleanor Hardy, Chloe Fox, and Addie Robillard. And then Simon Huff finished 7th in boys diving, which is impressive. Girls basketball finished as the district runner-up, first 13-win season, the most since 2022. I think we saw our boys basketball team moving on to regionals. They're district champs. They've upset 2 teams, so it's exciting and wonderful that they're upsetting teams. They've got a big task ahead of them I haven't heard, but I'm assuming they're playing the number one team in the state, Tangy Orange, so. Girls and boys wrestlers, 7 advanced to districts. So that's amazing. And we had, East Imperiani represent our boys bowling program at districts, so. And again, you're gonna get to hear about all of this from, Mr. Ovington, but that was just some of the highlights so far from winter. So good seasons.
Thank you.
And one other is we had the business community breakfast at the EH Green, and that was really well attended. That was an excellent day, and I know a lot of board members were able to attend that, so thanks for being there for that. Any other board business?
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.